Hey, Happy Campers. I'm Allison Miller, the CEO and founder of Happy Camper Live, and we are here at the Raising a Happy podcast. And I'm super excited today to be here with Jane Douglas, who is a musician, music teacher, songwriter, and just everything about music. And we're here to talk and hopefully inspire you parents to have the opportunity to get your kids into music, and for you campers that are listening to find out all the really cool things you can do with music here at Happy Camper Live. Jane, welcome.
Hello. Hello, happy campers, and hi, Alison. It's great to see you. And I really feel very happy to be talking about my favorite subject, music, and how it can inspire others.
That's great. And Jane, would you like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm from the UK, but I'm currently living in Asia and I've been working out here for 14 years. I'm a musician, firstly, and a music teacher out here. And I'm also a state registered music therapist. I got my training in the UK, so that's quite unusual. And I've worked in several countries, in the UK, obviously, all over Asia, in Hong Kong, Singapore, and China. And in addition to
Oh my
that,
gosh. Wow, that's incredible.
I'm also a performer. So I do a lot of songwriting and composing and improvisation and exploring creative and intuitive processes.
Wow. That's amazing. So, Jane, tell me, if we're looking at a parent or a camper who's really connected to music
Mm.
and is sort of thinking about, how does this fit into my life? What is that like track? Like how did you come to be doing all the things you're doing? And how did you know that this was a passion of yours, something that you just continue to want to put your soul into?
Well, I think firstly, I was very lucky because it was noticed by people around me that, I would bop to the beat or I'd suddenly sort of come alive when music came on. So that was recognized by family and close ones and loved one. Oh, look at Jane, she's bopping away. So it's kind
Right.
of important for others to recognize that. And then I was given opportunities within my school at the time in the UK to create music. And then I started taking guitar lessons quite young. It was age 6. Although if you're out here in Asia, some people actually start at age 3. And obviously people have different thoughts about that when you should start. But I started quite young. But my parents said to me, well, you're going to have to do 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. And I only had little fingers and it was sort of quite painful on my fingers to start. But that sort of gave me a start in it that, okay, if you're going to do this. So I was very lucky. And then there was a lot of music in the house. We went to a lot of music shows, musicals. There was village events that we could go to where there was a lot of music being made. There was the sort of village musical, which was great. So you got involved with that. And I just flourished through it. I absolutely loved it. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence and friends and community, most importantly.
It's interesting because I have a son who is a musician. And
Mm,
when he was really young, one, we had a lot of music in the house and we played classical music for
mhm.
him through a series of videos that had classical music on them. They're called Baby Einstein videos, and
Oh,
they
yes.
have like Mozart and Beethoven and stuff, right? So we
Yeah.
used to play those. And when he was in pre-kindergarten, so like 4 years old, no, he was 3, everybody would go for a nap and he would be listening to the music, but he memorized the entire tape of like the Beethoven's music or Bach, and to the point where he was humming along and it was keeping the other kids up. And so
Mm,
at 3 years old, the head of the school said to us, we think he should learn to play an instrument and maybe you could find someone to teach him piano. But nobody really wanted to teach a 3 year old a piano. They do violin, seems to be a
mm,
customary thing, teach it at a very young age. But I couldn't find a teacher until I found someone who also had a 3-year-old who was a piano teacher, and she said, I'll teach them together.
Oh,
So, it's really interesting. And now he's studying in college and, conducting and things like that. But I think you made two good points is one, it's never too young to play if that is what your child is,
mm,
expressing, right?
mm,
And, let them sing, let them dance, let them, put an instrument in their
mm,
hands, even if nobody else is supporting it. You can do a lot of things these days to learn music, and also to bring it into the home. And one of the things for me was that I was not a classical musician. I play the guitar, but I wasn't, that was not my world. But I opened up his world to different things that weren't just mine. And so that's what
mm.
he gravitated towards. So we just kept, feeding it to him, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, just noticing it and developing it and expanding it. And it's a very exciting process to see that and to recognize it. Yes.
So with your music and all the work you do in education with children, what kind of, I guess, structure or, if you're a parent at home this summer or with kids on a break from school, I think we tend to rely on the teachers for things. What can a parent do, Jane, to bring the learning of the music into the house that
Mm.
might be, easy for them to access?
Yeah. Well, I think to look at, firstly, to recognize your own musical self or musical child, as I say. Firstly, you need to come from a place of fulfillment. So, many people say they've had different kind of experiences in their own musical growth. Perhaps it's been that at school it's been a positive experience and they've been encouraged in whatever they've been interested in. But some parents that I work with here have said, oh no, it wasn't, because it was a different form of working and that didn't work for everyone. So I think finding what music you like first, what music you enjoy, because there's so much music out there, whether it is a show, whether it is a musical, whether it is through a film, whether it's something on the radio, whether it's meditation music, rock music, whatever it is that turns you on, embrace it yourself first, whether you like dancing, and then look at your child or your children and give them some experiences. Okay, now I did actually see a little baby being played rock music by a dad on YouTube the other day, and I thought, well, that's interesting because it wouldn't be what I would choose for a little baby, but that particular baby was rocking away and absolutely loving it. And it just goes to show that, we really can't put all these judgments on what's going to work for our children. We can be
Right.
sensitive to what works for them. So I think looking at that, learning an instrument is lovely. I do think it's important to find the right teacher. A lot has changed in education now so that it's more individualized. And of course, if lessons are on a one-to-one, then you've got a choice. But take your time and feel it out or go to a music shop. I think seeing music live is a really good way in and through a show, because then you see it happening in the now and there's a magic about that. So if you can, I would recommend that. And of course, I'm sure your summer camp has musical activities out here. There are loads of events that you can go to over the summer. And if your budget is smaller, or maybe you've got lots of children and it's hard to manage your time, then just increase music within the home in whatever way you can. Get a bag of instruments, little percussion instruments if you've got younger, early years kids. I specialize in working with early years. That's been my forte and bag out here, but I've also done older kids and adults as well. And put on the music and enjoy it. If you want to learn an instrument, you can pick up things like the ukulele and guitar quite quickly through a
Yeah.
tutor, through just learning 3 to 4 chords, and just enjoy it. And of course, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instruments that you can explore, even getting out the pots and pans, and play music from all around the world. Don't limit yourself, because you never know what your child might respond to.
Yeah, it's interesting. So at Happy Camper Live, we have all of these music counselors that have made these amazing recordings for the campers to learn anything from violin to the trombone to percussion
Mm,
to guitar, ukulele, how to write a song, how to sing.
mm,
It's just all part of what we share with kids at home so that they can be inspired. And I love what you said about going to live music because
mm.
I know when I go with my son to listen to music, he's always helping me, and he likes classical, so it's an orchestra. And he tells me to close my eyes and see if I can identify, like, is it a cello? Is it a violin? And this is the difference between the cello and the violin. And this is that he plays the timpani and how the timpani works. Now, all of that might be, more than you ever thought about or wanted to know about an orchestra. But one of the things he told me once was that when he started playing an instrument, he was never really given a choice. It was like he played piano. So the people in the band were like, okay, well, we don't have piano in the band, so you can play percussion. And he said, I would have loved to have played the oboe. That's my only
Mm,
regret. Like, I love,
mm.
and he plays the marimba, which is a very cool instrument too. I didn't realize we were going to be talking so much. I was going to talk about my son so much, but it's so relevant to this conversation because here we are, like he made a choice and then he spent,
Yeah.
pretty much 20 years on this one instrument. So I
Mm,
would suggest, like you, Jane, like listen to different instruments and see, like they
mm.
might say guitar because that's all they've heard, but there's so many instruments out there to explore. And also there are like museums and stuff that give more hands-on experience for kids to be able to
Yes,
touch and
that's a
play
good
with some of
place.
these things. And also you can make an instrument. Like you can, that I think is really fun too. Like you can make a guitar with cardboard, paper towel holder, rubber bands, and actually with different widths of the rubber bands, you can make different sounds. Like you said, percussion, you can, put cups and beans together and, have a nice beat going on and play and be playful and have a family band. And I did in a podcast with some people who do spoons. They take two spoons, and
Yeah,
they,
yeah,
you play the spoons.
yeah,
And their heritage spoons is pretty cool company, but there's a lot of ways to get involved. So I think that's really important for parents to know, like just tons,
yeah,
tons. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so tell me about your own music. Share with me your own music and what it is of like what how you've created it and how you've had an incredible career. So I'd love to hear more.
Thank you. Well, I I love the stage and I love performing, but around that, I was quite a sensitive and quite I'm emotional, so I needed a channel for my music and for expressing these huge feelings that I sometimes have or um, might not be able to express. So, because I was learning an instrument, I naturally started songwriting at a very young age, around about sort of probably 7, 8. And I had one of those old-fashioned tape recorders. I'm actually older than I look. And I used to record into it and listen back. And that was how I started. Oh, I like that. Oh, I'm going to change that. And that's how I started songwriting and having a little diary. And I'd write song after song after song after song. And then there were the chances to perform them sometimes. I get quite a good response. So I kind of kept at it. And there's another element when you perform live, because of course you act out each character and then you get into your emotions. And it was just a natural form of expression. And I had people who encouraged it. So although my teachers would give me sort of, I did all the grades as a classical player. I was also, they'd say, well, can you play that song? Or what have you been working on? So I had people again who were encouraging that side of me, the more intuitive side. And then I started performing, obviously, at sort of events and then bars and clubs, and then trying to work with other musicians. But I think the main part was when I met a songwriter at my university called Sonia Christina, who's still touring to this day, huge influence. And she took me to the studio and I recorded. And that for me was a real footprint because I grew up in an area which was predominantly white. And I was an adoptee, so my parents were white too. Later on, I found my families. But, in terms of identity and self, it was quite a lot that came up for me. And music was just a wonderful and very positive form of expression, connecting with others. So that's really how it started. And then I kept recording when I came out to Asia and was flying off to Hong Kong, partly because of language here in China. Being in the studio here when you've only got limited English,
Right.
it's quite challenging. So I was doing all that. And, now I have different aspects. I actually support and help other songwriters and do music podcasts for them and talk about their creative processes. So it's kind of gone full spectrum, really. But I think knowing what that creative process is like and being inside it, I think has helped me to be a better teacher and a better music therapist. I did a lot with children who had special needs. We use, or sort of neurodiversity, we call it now. So, all those aspects feed in from having those experiences, positive experiences myself.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. And so the inspiration for your own music, it's coming from feelings and when
Yeah.
you and experiences. And I think that, for kids these days, having an outlet for
Mhm.
expression is so important.
Yes.
And to be able to do that through music, especially for a child who, you can tell like intuitively, like you said, connects with it. And to
Mm.
show them that by writing, it's not just necessarily a journal per se, but it's writing as a form of that expression that you can
Mhm.
also put some music is really, really cool.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I played the guitar and I wrote songs, and it definitely was very therapeutic. And I,
Yes.
would also love how I could share my music and felt the impact of that on other people. So it
Mm.
definitely boosts confidence. That sharing, which you don't have to encourage your kids to share, but if there is something that they could share, even just to make a recording, like a little music video, maybe they'll even just have that when they're older.
Yeah.
And every kid these days likes to be on, in front of the camera. Most kids these days like to be in front of the camera. So maybe it's like, well, we're going to write a song. But like that could be a really fun activity to do with your kids if you're hanging out on, during the summer and you're like, oh my gosh, we've been so, it seems like it's just been a boring week. What can we do? Let's write a song about it being a boring week, and that will turn it into a fun week.
Yeah.
So from a
Absolutely.
songwriting, if you're like giving advice to a parent or, to engage with their kids in songwriting and, make it a fun activity, what are a couple of steps that they could take to do that? If you could give them, that inspiration.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think play good music, play some songwriters, and also you can start off quite small. You can change the lyrics to songs. So I do this a lot with young children because, we may learn a song and it's like, well,
Uh-huh.
we've learned that, but how are we going to bring in another extra form of expression? Well, what happens if the change the lyrics? What happened to you at the weekend? Okay, let's pop that in and that in. Oh yeah, now we've got something. And there's all kinds of
Right.
things. And you could, just even do, not everyone likes karaoke, but it's huge out here. So you can start from that as well. And again, play around with the lyrics, make it more relevant to yourselves. That can be great fun. And yes, and then the other thing is, if your child wants to just maybe songwrite on their own, because I don't know, I'm not sure that I would have wanted to songwrite with every member of my family or friends because it was
Yeah.
a private space. So they might want to, but if they don't, just being journaling and writing. I was exposed to poetry, again, going to concerts, and it can be a more intuitive process. But I think one of the main things is just not being overly critical about what comes out and just enjoying the experience, because we always think, oh, there's a right and a wrong. And it was really interesting that even when I went to university and I was playing these songs, that was another part. And I think just from talking to some really, really top songwriters out here who are doing very well, sort of globally, a lot of it doesn't necessarily come in this academic process. It comes from an intuitive, exploratory process because it's something new, right? So, not being overly critical and just enjoying it or allowing your child to develop in the way that they can. Yeah, sure, there's a space for them going to get lessons for it, but just letting it be. It's like play, musical play. So having a tape recorder can be fun. Maybe nowadays, maybe it would be, I don't know, a little, well, iPad, you've got to be careful what's on it, but you can get little apps where you can record on it quickly
Sure.
and create effects for them. So I do that sometimes for children. It's harder to write with about 25, but sometimes we do it, yeah, with the older ones. Yeah.
We we led a class or an activity with a group of campers for one of our Happy Camper Hangouts, and we all wrote a song together. And it was
That's
such
lovely.
a fun podcast like experience. I'm going to say that again and let them edit it. So we did a music songwriting class as part of Happy Camper Hangouts, where all of the kids came on and we all wrote a song together. And it was actually fun because at the end we put our copyright on it. So the kids felt like they had really written a song. And it was fun
Yeah.
to see what the different kids were contributing to the
Mm.
song, to the story, and all of that. It was really fun. So I do think, like you said, just let it flow. Kids can do it alone. They can do it together. Maybe a friend. Sometimes friends come over and the parents feel a lot of pressure to like what the kids are like, what should we do? What should we do? I always would like throw these creative tasks at them. I'm like, oh, well, we can write a song. Do you want to make a show? That kind of thing. So I think that could be, even if your child's not into it, maybe the other kid is, and it could be a fun
Yeah.
way to it's a fun way to get them, busy and learning at the same time. So it's kind of fun to, talk about music in this context, but also I feel like I want to hear some of your music. So I know it doesn't always come across that great on the podcast to do that. So where, Jane, can everybody here listen to your beautiful music?
Yeah, so you can, well, it's on most channels. I've actually done 6 CDs and some of them are being re-released. Some of them I'm more proud of than others because it's an exploratory creative process. But yeah, so the last one was Rail Track a couple of years ago, and that was inspired by sort of running around, and I was very interested in Ireland and sort of because they have stone circles and all kinds of interesting
Yeah.
things. And I found that and very interesting to write about. And I was thinking about the rail track that even when you think you're reaching the end, you're actually at the beginning, and like you're on a continual journey really, and you're aspecting life. So I wrote rail track, and you can find that on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, most channels it will be on. Just search Jane Nicola Douglas. I do have a few albums in my old name, which was Stacey Jane Douglas. And so, yeah, you can get hold of me on most platforms. And I hope you enjoy it. I write what's called soul folk. And the reason why I did that, because when I first came out, it was like, well, she's not jazz, she's not folk. Well, what is she? And what are we going to call her? And there was a real thing about, well, and the fact that I'm black too. It was like, well, where do we put it? And I remember being in a shop once and it was like, well, nobody knows where to put me. I recorded this music. You say I'm this, and it was a journalist was stood behind me, and he became very interested. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" And then he wrote me a write up, and that gave me a lot of confidence afterwards to actually go with my music because I was seeing Whitney Houston and things like that, and it's like, well, you've got to do soul and R&B. There's some people saying it's like, well, no, that's not my experience. I trained as a classical guitarist. I grew up in a countryside where I was singing folk music and later jazz. So why am I going to start singing R&B? And I have tried a few times and it sounds funny.
Right.
I've probably got better at it. So yeah, but anyway, I have recorded my songs and I'm hugely proud of them. Wonderful to write. Really exciting to record out here and collaborate with different people and experimental as well. A lot of people say they find it quite calming to listen to. Yeah, so yeah, and I've been likened to people like Joan Armatrading occasionally, Joni Mitchell, but yeah, not
Very cool.
completely.
Well, we would love to end the podcast when we are all done editing with a little bit of railroad there so that everybody
Yeah,
can hear a tiny bit. So that's what we're
yeah,
going to leave you all with now.
yeah.
And Jade, anything else you'd like to let our listeners know about, connecting with you and just anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just think that music, the arts are hugely powerful and fun, and there's so much to explore. Even now, out here, having made music for years, I'm still learning every day, and I learn from the children that I work with. It's been a real catalyst to just explore music and see what people are doing around the globe or just even in your own country. There's so much that we can access and enjoy on so many different levels. And I really want to come to your camp, Alison. I think it sounds fantastic.
Well, the best thing, Jane, is that everybody gets to go to Happy Camper Live because we've
Yeah.
created it for all the kids in the world so that every kid can experience the camp. So you
Right.
just go to happycamperlive.com and you can hop on there. You can bring your music classes there. They can learn from some of our great counselors too. So,
Yeah.
the violin and the trombone and guitar and keyboards, pretty much every mainstream instrument that is out there and a little bit more. So, yeah, that's the whole point of what we do. It's just to bring camp and the joy and the magic of summer camp to everybody out there in the world, and so that we can all be happy campers, right?
Yeah, that's really special.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Jane Douglas, for being part of the Raising a Happy Camper podcast. You're awesome. And it was so much fun. Now we're camp friends, Jane. Okay. So you're part
Great.
of our Happy Camper world. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So I think that's it. We're going to tie it up. And
All
until
right.
next time, Jane
Lovely.
Douglas, thank you for hanging out with us. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's great to talk to you. Bye.
Take a moment to shine.